Welcome in, race fans, to this edition of Through the Gears, presented by Front Stretch. I'm your host, Tino Pattigno, and I couldn't be more excited to be back breaking down all the NASCAR betting action for this weekend ahead as we look towards COTA. We'll also recap the insane tire wear action that we saw at Bristol Motor Speedway last weekend. We had some money on that race, and we were able to cash. So we'll recap that and go through some of the guys that came through for us and some of those who didn't as well. We got a road course on the schedule, so that means we're turning left and right in this one this week. SVG's out there on the board for us. Chase Elliott is back at COTA. Who do we bet on? Tyler Reddick's been dominant. We'll get into all of that into the show there as we go through the gears. But before we get into all of that, I have to shout out 3 people who commented on our YouTube video for Through the Gears. I really appreciate all the support, whether it's a view, a share, a like, or a comment. It all means a lot to me as we try to grow this channel and grow the show as much as possible. So I'm going to give you guys a shout out here. First up, it's going to be Sato Shisenhara, 4843, Kyle B, 1869, and Donald Veal, 8135. Thank you guys. I hope you're tuning in again. And I'm going to be sure to go through and acknowledge those comments, like them. If you guys have a question, I'll be sure to answer it and everything like that. So keep the comments coming. I want to interact with you guys out there. If you have any betting questions for me, I'll be there at Tino Pattigno, the one responding to you guys as well. So keep an eye out for me. Thanks again for the support there. And to be sure, if you want to comment and just to get a shout out or get acknowledged, I will be doing so from here on out if you guys intend on leaving comments there. And so I really do appreciate it. Get ready for the COTA racing action this weekend from a NASCAR betting standpoint as we go through the gears. So it's time for the Bristol recap, and this one's special to me because that race was one of the best races at Bristol Motor Speedway that I have ever seen personally. I liked it that much. I think the tire wear was awesome, and yes, it was definitely a little extreme, but it put the control in the driver's hands, and that's something that we really haven't seen yet, at least in this next-gen car, the ability for drivers to be able to run their own race. The strategy came into play and everything like that. With the next-gen car, I feel like it made things a lot more even for all the teams across the board, and that can be a good thing. But at a short track like Bristol, rubbing is racing, and that's sort of the high lines and the low lines and the middle groove that had no grip, all combined really made for some interesting racing there. And if you want more insight on that and the race that was at Bristol Motor Speedway, you can check out the Stock Car Scoop. They give you the post-race coverage on the Front Stretch Podcast Network for all the things that you need to know about the post-race and everything like that. I can go on and on about how much I like that race, but I'll leave it there for them to cover. And also, I'll get into a little bit of the betting side now. We had Denny Hamlin cash it, a winner. He was only plus 550 as he was one of the favorites alongside Kyle Larson there. So it wasn't the biggest payout, but one driver that I need to mention was Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs had an incredible race at Bristol, and to me, he was able to manage his tires so much better than the other drivers up until when it mattered most there at the end, where Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. ultimately, the reason why they finished or they were there in the top 2 there at the end was because of the way they're able to manage their tires better than the other drivers towards the end of that race. And Ty Gibbs was a driver. We had him 28-1 to win that race. It was like 30 to go, 20 to go, and he was still leading, but then he just lost all grip and he had to come into the pits. So that one was tough. Josh Berry was another one. We had 30-1 for Josh Berry to be the top forward, and hey, 130-1 for him to even win the race. Now, it didn't look like he was capable of winning the race. He did show speed and lead early, but in terms of the tire wear at the end, he just caught in the back. He had to pit. He drove his way all the way to the front. He was one car away from being the first forward. Brad Keselowski was in his way. 5 laps to go. I think he has it. And then he just finishes in 11th. We don't even get a top 10 out of the deal. Same sort of situation there with Ty Gibbs. But I'm overall definitely happy with the plays we put out there. You know, obviously you can't be too happy because we didn't cash all of our tickets, but in the end, I know the stats were there to back us up. The thought process was there, and we had our drivers that we were rooting for, that we put money on there in contention for the win. Luckily, we had Denny Hamlin cash for us, Chris Buescher for a top 10 as well. We all talked about that on the show, Johnny on the Track and I. So shout out to him. If you guys want to follow him, it's at JOTT_podcast there. So thanks again for Johnny to coming on. Now it's time to do some prep for the Circuit of the Americas Echo Park Automotive Automotive Grand Prix. It's going to be 68 laps for 231.88 miles. Stage cautions are back. So that's the first thing we can get into here. To me, I think that does have a slight benefit for us on the betting standpoint, definitely for live betting. Whereas you know, if someone has a rocket of a car, for instance, the race that I look at for this is Michael McDowell last year at the Indy Road Course. That car dominated that race, and Daniel Suarez, Chase Elliott were in contention to win that one. But if there were stages, strategy could have came into play, would have helped us reset. And for our guys that may have needed adjustments, they could have helped get that at the stage break cautions there. So for this year moving forward, stage break cautions are back at road courses. And there's been 3 races here since the start of NASCAR racing at COTA in 2021. 2 with the next gen car. The winners have been Chase Elliott in 2021, Ross Chastain in 2022, and Tyler Reddick last year. Last year's race did go into triple overtime as well, but Reddick was able to survive that and move on and ultimately get the win. The road course ringers are here. AJ Allmendinger will be driving the 13 car for Colleague Racing. Shane Van Gisbergen, we cashed on him last year of the Chicago Street Race, or at least I did, from Tino Pattigno. So now I'm bringing it over to you guys for Front Stretch, bringing the SVG good vibes. I talked to him at that race as well. Such a great guy, such a humble driver, and he's just excited to be in the sport here for NASCAR. So I'm super excited for SVG to be back. And Kamui Kobayashi, he will be racing in the number 50 car for 2311 Racing, and I think he's got a good shot. I mean, maybe top 10. I don't think he can win it, but it's nice to see when drivers come over to NASCAR and try their hand for a good finish and just racing around some of the best drivers in the world. When it comes to road course racing, and that are current full-time NASCAR drivers in the Cup Series, it's Austin Cindric, Chase Briscoe, Michael McDowell, and Daniel Suarez. Now, I think these guys are important to note because, yes, they can win on other tracks, and they have. For instance, Daniel Suarez has, Chase Briscoe won at Phoenix, and Michael McDowell, you know, he's won at Daytona and things like that. They don't just win at road courses, but I think their chances of winning get elevated when there are right turns involved. And I think those 4 drivers I mentioned specifically, and Chris Buescher was on this list too until his breakout performance last year, so they can take themselves off this list. But when it comes to the drivers that I feel like benefit the most, that are current drivers that can also win on any given day, I think being at a road course helps them out a lot more. And we've seen it before. We've seen it in the past. I mean, Austin Cindric, Chase Briscoe maybe still have a little bit more to prove, but from what I've seen, the sample size there, they've been fast at COTA specifically, and then the Xfinity series as well. They were really fast on the road courses throughout their career there as well. Last weekend for Bristol, I said, call me Tino Toyota. Well, for COTA this week, call me Tino Toyota COTA, because this race is going to be dominated by the Toyotas. Tyler Reddick, since 2022, in the next gen car, has 11 races run on road courses, 3 wins, 9 top 8 finishes, and 147 laps led. The Toyotas are trending in the right direction early in this season. In the last 2 races for Joe Gibbs Racing specifically, they led 613 laps out of 812 for the last 2 races. I mean, that is a great stat, and it shows how they were able to perform consistently. All 4 drivers for that team have been going off, and even in Las Vegas with 2311 for Tyler Reddick, but Joe Gibbs Racing specifically is leading that charge for all the Toyotas in the field, and it's been crazy to see the amount of progress they have made with the next gen car on tracks that they just weren't that fast at, or at least they did not have that much consistent speed with all 4 Toyota drivers for Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, if we take a look at the road courses specifically, this is what jumps out to me the most. In the early last couple of years within the next gen car, they really struggled early on to get speed at these road course races. As in 2023, the top 5 points earned at road courses were all Toyota drivers. All 4 JGR cars and Tyler Reddick, they were the top performers on the road course races there. And to me, that is huge, because if they've been on a roll lately, there's nothing telling me they're going to slow down anytime soon. Now let's take a look at our board for DraftKings specifically. I'll be talking about them since they are the official sportsbook of NASCAR, but you can shop around and find better value for other drivers out there, and I definitely suggest you do so. But in terms of props, favorites, winners, top 3, top 5, group bets, whatever it may be, I'm reading off of the DraftKings Sportsbook right now. So Tyler Reddick, sits as the leader at plus 450. Then we have Chase Elliott at plus 750, Shane Van Gisbergen at plus 900, William Byron at plus 1,000, and Christopher Bell at plus 1,000 as well. A bunch of things stand out to me already. I got my stats. I'm ready to go off here for you guys because, yes, we talked about all the stats for Tyler Reddick, so we can move on from him. He's been dominant here last year. He won last year as well. But Chase Elliott specifically is the driver I want to talk about. 7 road course wins. So that is the second most all-time. Jeff Gordon has 9. I think Chase will surpass that when he gets towards the end of his career. But he didn't race in this race in last year. Chase Elliott was out due to injury and did not race at this racetrack last year. But the 2 years before that, he finished 1st and 4th at this racetrack. So it's going to be interesting to see how Chase is able to do in this race. Will he be rusty at this racetrack? At a plus 750 number, I know he has the most road course wins out of all active drivers right now, but I still need him to prove it to me. If he goes out and wins the pole, maybe I'll consider it, but I'm not betting on Chase Elliott to win outright this weekend because he just hasn't shown the consistent speed that I want to see out of Chase Elliott in order to lock him in for a victory. And I think he needs to prove himself to me before I can bet on him to win a race again. Shane Van Gisbergen, plus 900 for him. Now, he won his first start at the Chicago Street Race, but we won't really look at that too much. Let's look at the Indy Road Course. He finished 10th there as well. So 2 top 10s in his 2 starts. I think at plus 900, yes, it's his 3rd race overall. So is that fair to put a guy at plus 900 in only his 3rd race to win? I think it is, and the most reason I think that is because Trackhouse Racing is preparing his car, and I think that reason alone, with Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain being the front runners at COTA specifically, and also racing for Trackhouse, to me, I think that just makes sense because we know he's going to go into this race with speed, and we know SVG is capable of winning. Now, when we look at William Byron, this will be my first outright winner that I give out to you guys, or at least a driver that I will be betting on to do so. The reason is I think William Byron was the 2nd to 3rd best car in this race last year. I watched the race back, the entire thing, and Tyler Reddick was dominant, yeah, but if it wasn't him, it was Willie B leading a lot of laps. He finished 5th in this race last season, and he led 28 laps. But one thing that's important to note as well is he won at Watkins Glen. That was his first road course victory, and I think when you get your first, the others start to come a little bit easier. We saw Chase Elliott, once he won at Watkins Glen to get his first win, a lot more wins started coming in, at least from the road course standpoint that we're talking about here specifically. So at William Byron at 10-1 for this weekend, I think he's the driver that you can't look past. With William Byron having the season that he did last year, I think that confidence just goes up. And I think if anyone can contend to Tyler Reddick this weekend, it's going to be William Byron. If I'm betting on another Chevy driver this weekend, it's going to be Ross Chastain at plus 1,200. I like the value there for Ross Chastain as he has 3 top 5s in the last 3 races here at COTA. So he's a perfect 3 for 3 in terms of top 5 finishes. He got his first career win at this racetrack, 35 laps led in total. Now, I think in terms of speed, last year he didn't have enough to really contend with Tyler Reddick for the win. But when he comes here again, I think one thing that's important to know with Chastain, although I really do like this 12-1 number, I think I'll put a little bit of my units here right now on that number. But all of his starts at COTA have been from 12th and further. So to me, the value of this number could potentially go up if Ross Chastain were to qualify outside the top 10 again. And if he does so, great. But I don't think it's worth the gamble right now. If he qualifies inside the top 10, that number is going to go down. It's going to go down from 12-1 and probably be 8-1, 7-1 if he qualifies inside the top 5. So I don't think it's worth the risk. I think the 12-1 is valuable right now, but just something that's important to note that he has qualified outside the top 10 in his last 3 starts at COTA. So the number will go up if that happens. We saw with Ty Gibbs at Bristol, definitely a more dramatic standpoint here with Ty Gibbs, who spun out and started all the way at the back at Bristol. So his number went to 28-1, but just a good example where you can see how the value may change after practice and qualifying. Ty Gibbs now 11-1 for Gibbs to win this one. I'm not too happy with that value. I would like it to be greater, just because he's still trying for his first win, and he only has 1 race at this racetrack. So to me, I think that's a little unfair. I would want to get this number at 13 to 14-1, but if I think he's going to win outright, I got to bet him to win outright. I think that's just just as simple as it is. In terms of why I think that is because last year he finished 9th and he started 17th at this racetrack. He was a top 5 car at Watkins Glen, and I think right now Ty Gibbs can be the most improved driver in the field. We've seen him lead laps. We've seen him get top 10s. We've seen him high in the standings right now, and it does not look like he's going anywhere. I think Ty Gibbs has continued to bring the speed, and with the new bodies of the Toyotas and the improvements they've made there, I think Ty Gibbs is benefiting off that greatly, and just more experience as well. So to me, I think Ty Gibbs can win this race at 11-1. I think he's a Toyota who is a shot, who's racing at a road course, who's a great road course racer. Why not Ty Gibbs? If you're concerned about the value, maybe wait until after practice and qualifying, just because we saw what happened last week. Like I just mentioned, he spun out at Bristol. His number was 28-1, and we talked about it on the pod. We knew he can still go out and win that race, so we doubled down on Ty Gibbs there. But for Ty Gibbs here, I think 11-1 is not the best value we could get for him, but I do think he is going to have a shot to win this race. If he's going to learn anything from Tyler Rennick or any of the older veteran drivers at Joe Gibbs Racing, that could definitely help him heading into this one. Now let's take a look at some drivers with more value in this race. Kyle Busch is the first one at plus 1,500. He's been good at COTA, and he's been a great road course racer throughout his career. But to me, although the value is good for a big name like Kyle Busch, I'm going to need him to prove it to me. I just haven't been getting that vibe from RCR that they are capable of winning races so far this season. Kyle Busch definitely is. Austin Dillon, probably not. But Kyle Busch can win races. We know this. It's Kyle Busch. But is the equipment and his pit crew going to help him do that right now? That hasn't been the case. McDowell, Michael McDowell, I think at plus 1,700. This is a driver you need to keep your eye out on. He won at the Indy Road Course last season, and he's been the most consistent, one of the most consistent road course racers throughout his Cup career. Now, one thing that's also important to note is Team Penske's alliance with Front Row Motorsports. I think that's going to be huge for Michael McDowell, especially in this road course race. And I think with the added whether it's elements of adjustments that they're able to bring, data, or just in terms of speed that they will be able to bring to the racetrack. 17-1 for McDowell. That's been great at qualifying. This is the number that I see on the board with the best closing line value. We could see him qualify within the top 10, and this number will be cut in half. So be sure, if you are liking this McDowell play, be sure to give him a look as well. Now, Alex Bowman, he's next up for me in terms of great value. 25-1 for a Hendrick Motorsports car. Now, if anyone would be that, it would be Alex Bowman. He has performed the least best out of those 4 drivers in Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and William Byron. We know this. But at COTA specifically, here's his last 3 finishes. 8th, 2nd, and 3rd. If I were to tell you which driver was that before telling you it was Alex Bowman, I don't think you would have been able to guess that Alex Bowman has been as consistent as he has been at this racetrack. And the bottom line is he's just been great at COTA, and that gives me a lot of confidence at 25-1 to put a little bit on Alex Bowman to see what he'll be able to do. And if he's going to get a win, I think it's going to have to happen soon. I mean, he's not been able to show that much speed that we want to see out of his car. I think he's got some good racetracks coming up, but why not here at COTA? Why not Alex Bowman? I think he's been in positions to win before, and that to me is especially what I look at in a race where we could see multiple restarts toward the end, double overtime, triple overtime. If Alex Bowman's just in the right place at the right time, he can go out and get the win. I don't expect to see him dominate, but I definitely want to see him towards the front as he has been in the past. Then I'm looking at 2 Ford drivers that have a good shot of getting us the win here for great value. It's going to be Austin Cindric at plus 2,800. I think that's a good number for a driver like Cindric, who is a road course specialist, at least what we've seen in his career, and especially in the Xfinity Series as well. Now, obviously, the Cup cars drive completely different, but we saw him lead laps in 2021 at this racetrack and 2023. So I think with him being up at the front, it could have a shot at the win there. And the last driver that has very high value that is also capable of winning this race is Chase Briscoe. He's 55-1. I think Stewart Haas Racing has taken a major step forward this season, and Chase has run very well at road courses and has been up front at this racetrack specifically before. So if he can be at the right place at the right time and have a shot to win it there at the end, 55-1 is a great number if you want to put a sprinkle on him. Now, in terms of top 3 bets or group bets, that's something I'm going to hold off of specifically after I wait until practice and qualifying to happen so that I can really judge the speed of drivers' cars course, because at road course racing, it can be tricky at times to really see who's going to be fast and who can carry speed on the long runs as well. But I have a lot of top 5 and top 10 props that I'll talk about for you guys now. One driver I'm confident on in finishing inside the top 10 and having speed at this racetrack is Chris Buescher. In 2023, he had 5 top 10 finishes, finished top 11 at every road course race last year, and he's got a streak going for top 11 finishes as well. So he's the first up. He's minus 110 for a top 10 in this one. Then Austin Cindric is plus 100 for a top 10. I think if Cindric is going to get a top 10, it's going to be at this racetrack. If not, he's in for a rude awakening for the rest of this season. Michael McDowell's top 10 value doesn't correlate with his price to win outright for me. So to me, the best value for Michael McDowell prop is going to be for a top 5 at plus 200. I think that's fair, and I think it's doable for McDowell. Ty Gibbs, you saw how high I am on him again this week. And I think one thing that's important to note is I was very high on Christopher Bell going into the race at Vegas, and he ultimately had some troubles there and did not get the finish he deserved. But then he won the next week at Phoenix. So that's a trend that I'm considering here with Ty Gibbs, as I was high on him at Bristol. He had a problem there very late at the end, swept the first 2 stages there. I think maybe I was 1 week too early, so I like Ty Gibbs for a top 5 at plus 140 there. And Chase Elliott as well. It's not often you get plus money for a Chase Elliott prop on road courses. For Chase Elliott, plus 100 to get a top 5 finish, that's something that I'll sprinkle a little bit of juice on, because I know Chase Elliott is capable. And if he is going to turn things around for himself, I think it's going to happen here at COTA to start the season. All right, let's round them up. It's our favorite plays that I mentioned so far on Through the Gears in this episode. All of the ones, whether it's a prop bet, race winner, or everything, what I like the most overall on the show. And it's going to be Tyler Reddick to start us off at plus 450. I don't necessarily like the value, but I love the stats and I love everything that is trending in the right direction for Tino, Tyler, Toyota, COTA, Reddick this weekend. Plus 550 for Tyler Reddick to win outright. That's one of my favorite plays. Another one is going to be Ross Chastain at 12-1 to win outright. He is one of the only drivers with 3 top 5 finishes at this racetrack in 3 of the races that we have had here. Another one is going to be Ty Gibbs to get that top 5 finish at plus 140. I think that's doable for a driver like Ty Gibbs, who's been consistently running fast this season. And the last one, we'll call it a favorite in terms of how much I'm intrigued by it. That's going to be Alex Bowman to win at plus 2,500. I think that's good value right now, and if he qualifies inside the top 10, it's definitely going to go down. All right, everyone, that will do it for this episode of Through the Gears, as we previewed everything you need to know for this NASCAR racing betting action this weekend at COTA. It's going to be awesome seeing the cars go left and right in this one. Shout out to Front Stretch for letting me, be the host of the show and have an opportunity to talk to you guys about NASCAR betting each and every week. Stay tuned for the Stock Car Scoop post-race for COTA as they break down everything you need to know from that race, insight, analysis, and much more. Be sure to follow the Front Stretch Podcast Network, as there are a bunch of great shows that you can tune into throughout the week, before the NASCAR racing action and after. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Comment down below who you think is going to win the race this weekend at COTA. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments below, or you can find me at Tino Pattigno for more NASCAR betting content and analysis. Be sure to follow Front Stretch at Front Stretch for more racing content on social media. I'm your host, Tino Pattigno. I'll see you guys next week as we go through the gears.